is an old saying that has echoed through generations, whispered by grandmothers to grandchildren, carved into the wisdom of every culture that has ever existed on this earth. We reap what we sow. Most people nod when they hear it. Most people believe it, in theory. But here is what no one tells you. The harvest never arrives on your schedule. Sometimes it comes years later. Sometimes it arrives in a form you never expected. And sometimes, when it finally comes, it changes everything. Stay with me, because the story of Govind the merchant is about to show you exactly what that means. In the valley of Surajpur, where the river Chambal bent gently like an elder bowing in respect, there lived a merchant named Govind. He was sharp-minded and quick with numbers, the kind of man who could calculate profit before a transaction was even complete. In his younger days, that sharpness had served him well. He had built a modest trading business from almost nothing, hauling cloth and spices along the dusty roads between villages. People respected his work ethic. His wife, Kamala, was proud. His 2 young daughters grew up watching their father rise before dawn and return after dusk, his hands rough, his shoulders strong. But somewhere along the way, in the quiet space between ambition and satisfaction, something else grew inside Govind. Greed. Not the loud, obvious kind that announces itself. This was the patient kind. The kind that convinces you it is simply good sense. It whispered to him every evening, "More, a little more, just a little more, and then you will be safe. Then you will be enough." And so Govind began to stretch his scales. Not by much at first. A thumb pressed gently while weighing grain. A measurement of cloth cut just a finger width short. Small adjustments, he told himself. Reasonable. The world is unfair, he reasoned, so why should he not take his shah? He told himself he was shrewd, that only the naive played by rules that others quietly bent. Years passed like monsoon clouds, heavy and unhurried. Govind's wealth grew, his shop expanded, he hired young men to help him, and he watched his ledgers fill with numbers that made him feel, for a short while, like he had won. He bought a larger house at the edge of the market, he wore finer cloth, and yet, the satisfaction never lasted more than a few days before the whisper returned. More. His daughters grew older. The older one, Priya, noticed something others could not name. When neighbors visited, there was a warmth missing from the conversations. When merchants from other towns came to trade, there was a careful, watchful quality to their eyes. Govind noticed none of this. He was too busy watching his scales. Then, one ordinary morning, something arrived that no ledger could prepare him for. A young cloth merchant from the neighboring district came to Surajpur. He was new to the trade routes, eager to establish connections, and someone directed him to Govind's shop. The young man was charming and quick. He brought with him a large quantity of imported silk, genuinely fine material, and offered it at a price that made Govind's pulse quicken. But there was a catch. The transaction had to happen quickly, the young man said. He had other buyers waiting in the city. Govind felt the familiar pull, the opportunity, the chance. He examined only a few bolts of the silk, nodded with practiced confidence, and paid a significant sum. The young merchant thanked him warmly, packed his cart, and left before afternoon prayers. 3 days later, Govind unrolled the silk to sell it. The top bolts were real. What lay beneath them was ordinary cotton dyed to mimic the sheen of silk. He was tired. He was furious. His hands trembled as he counted the loss. Not just money, but something harder to replace. He had been cheated. He, Govind the merchant. He, the man who had spent 20 years sharpening his eyes so no one could fool him, and yet. He sat alone in his shop that evening, the bolts of false silk spread around him like an accusation. His daughter Priya brought him a cup of tea and sat beside him without speaking. After a long silence, she said quietly, "Papa, did you not always say that a man teaches the world how to treat him?" He did not answer. He could not. That night, he lay awake staring at the ceiling, and the weight of the years pressed down on him. Every thumb on every scale, every cloth cut short, every customer who had left his shop with less than they had paid for. He had spent 20 years teaching the world a lesson, and now the world had learned it perfectly. There is a truth about seeds that farmers understand and merchants often forget. A seed does not ask your intentions when you plant it. It does not care whether you meant well or not. It simply grows according to its nature, fed by whatever soil surrounds it. Govind had been planting seeds of deception for 2 decades, watering them with self-justification, sheltering them with the belief that he was simply being clever. And they had grown, as seeds always do, into exa, kaitali, what they were. This ancient wisdom speaks to us today. In our modern world of fast transactions, instant profits, and business cultures that sometimes reward cleverness over character, we face the same choice Govind faced every morning when he reached for those scales. The tools are different. The temptation is identical. Here is what Govind's story teaches us. Not as punishment, but as invitation. First, understand that how you do anything is how you do everything. The small compromises we make in moments no one is watching are not small. They are seeds. They grow into habits. Habits grow into character, and character grows into the harvest we ultimately receive from life. Second, recognize that the world learns from us. Every interaction teaches the people around us something about how we operate, what we value, what we're willing to do, who we truly are beneath our best presentation. We are always teaching. The question is only what lesson we are giving. Third, remember that short-term gain and long-term cost share the same ledger. Govind kept meticulous books for his shop, but never once counted what he was spending in reputation, in trust, in the quiet withdrawal of goodwill from the community around him. True wealth requires a fuller accounting. Fourth, know that correction is always possible. Govind spent the next years returning to the practice of honest trade, weighing accurately, measuring fairly, building back what he had quietly dismantled. It was slower. The profits were smaller at first, but something changed in his shop. People lingered longer. They referred others. His daughters stood a little straighter when they spoke of their father's work. The field never lies to the farmer. It returns exactly what was planted, nothing more, nothing less, with one additional gift, the interest of time. What are you planting today, in your work, in your words, in your quiet choices when no one is watching? Because the harvest is already on its way. Make sure it is one worth waiting for.